The nation's top military officer blasting Wikileaks for releasing nearly 400,000 secret documents covering the war in Iraq. Admiral Mike Mullen, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is accusing the website of giving, quote, valuable information to enemies of the U.S. Wikileaks founder Julian Assange brushing off criticism that the documents will endanger the lives of U.S. soldiers or allies in Iraq. But what can the U.S. do to stop a whistleblower who is not even an American and is apparently on the run all over the globe? Here now is Republican Congressman Pete Hoekstra from Michigan, the ranking member of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Thank you so much for talking to us. When are we going to see this man prosecuted, or can we, considering the fact that he is a foreign-born whistleblower who is all over the globe, and we can't necessarily get our hands on him?
Well, number one, I wouldn't give him the credit of being a whistleblower. You know, he put out in public roughly 400,000 documents. What we need to be focused on here in the United States is we need to be focused on the individual, most likely within the Pentagon, who leaked this information in the first place. That is where we have to be focused. That is the person that we have to prosecute. That is the person that I hope we can identify and get our hands on. That's where we start.
What does this say about the vulnerability of our nation's intelligence databases and the ability of the Pentagon and intelligence community to protect the information they contain if someone apparently was able to access so much classified information, then copy it and transmit it, get it into Julian Assange's hands without being caught?
It says a lot about the security of our data and our cyber infrastructure, and none of it is good. It does say that an individual or perhaps a small group of individuals can get a hold of that much information and that they can access it, download it, and transfer it out without ever being identified. It is a huge problem. This is one of the other things that we ought to be looking at. If this is what one of the people inside the Pentagon may be able to do, how protected is our cyber infrastructure from people from the outside who may be trying to attack into it? It's a huge problem, and one that both the military and Congress should take a look at. How vulnerable are we?
If our vulnerability isn't bad enough, then you've got the Pentagon and other officials trying to downplay the damage caused by these illegal leaks. Yesterday, I spoke with Brigadier General Anthony Tata. He says Wikileaks founder Julian Assange is an enemy of the state, and we should declare him as such. When is the Pentagon going to declare him as an enemy of the state and prosecute him?
Well, I hope they do it relatively quickly. But again, I think they need to look at their internal structure and their internal systems first. That's where we start.
Britain's deputy PM today calling for an investigation into any allegations of abuse or any claims that were apparently rules of war to have been broken in Iraq. What is the U.S.'s response to that?
Well, I think clearly if there's information in these documents at all said that the rules of war, that there's evidence of, crimes within this information, surely you need to follow it up. But I think the other thing is, where does Parliament get involved? Where does Congress get involved? It is taking a look at the systemic issues here. Is our cyber network safe? Was there a systemic, misinformation coming out of the military to the American public or to the American government about what was going on in Iraq? I don't think we've seen that, but that's maybe a couple of the areas where Congress or Parliament might want to take a look.
And what about the trust factor when dealing with the United States? I mean, why would intelligence overseas now want to trust us in the future if it appears to them anyway that America can't seem to keep a secret?
Well, it's a huge problem. I've been overseas recently. It's an item that has come up consistently. It's an item about people questioning whether the United States can keep a secret, whether we're going to be able to develop the sources to give us information to keep us safe in the future. On the flip side, we've also recently given information to the UK, or have in the last number of years, that their courts are now compelling to be made public. So now there's questions in the United States about whether we should share information with the Brits, knowing that it may end up in the public because of court orders. There's a whole range of issues now with so much information readily available, how that information is going to be made available in the courts, and how we are both, all of us who are involved in intelligence, how we're all going to keep that information secret. And then we deal with the other issue, overclassification. Our government overclassifies information as secret. A lot of this information maybe could have been made public, and maybe
Sure.
should have been made public much earlier.
And a lot of the information wasn't necessarily a surprise either, so it didn't really seem like there was any reason why the government would classify this information, because it almost makes you wonder if you can trust our government. If they're not being forthright with us, why is it that we're having to find all this information out from someone like Julian Assange? And why is it that we're finding out this information at the same time as our enemies?
Well, again, a lot of this is not a surprise. Is it a surprise that, the military was writing about Iran's involvement in military activities in Iraq? Now, we knew that.
Right.
Is it a surprise that there was Shia on Sunni violence? No, we knew that. Is it a surprise that there was, violence by Iraqi on Iraqi? That stuff was all known. What I think the problem here is this gets into a granular detail that is not helpful and really doesn't give us much more than we already had before.
And I mean, the war in Iraq obviously was controversial enough, and the fact that this is coming out, this information apparently accusing American troops of being responsible for more Iraqi civilian deaths than were originally reported. We don't have any facts to back that up, but nonetheless, that has been, from the very beginning of the Iraq War, a major bone of contention.
That's exactly right. And this now goes back, opens up some old wounds. Hey, if there is information here about criminal activity, follow it up. If there is identification of here are systemic problems, follow it up. But let's not kind of create controversy where there isn't any. There's enough problems in Iraq without going back over that ground.
Congressman Peter Hoekstra, thank you so much for talking to us.
Great. Thank you.
Greg.